Welcome to the Bourbon Van. I'm Phil.
I'm Julie.
It is Whiskey in the Van Wednesday. Buffalo Trace Month comes to an end with a controversial bottle. We couldn't close out the month without talking about Blanton's.
And what a run it's been.
The jockey, the run, it's great.
Oh, we're the worst.
Whiskey in the Van Wednesday. Again, we're not in the van. We're so close. Maybe the next one. Maybe the next episode we'll be back in the van. I really hope so. But today I'm joined by Julie. She's not just going to steal my Weller from off camera like she did last week. We're going to drink some Blanton's together today.
And I really like Blanton's, so I'm glad to be here.
So Blanton's is a bit of a polarizing bottle. We're going to talk about that. We'll get into it. But first, let's just do a quick history on this particular bourbon. Blanton's was first released in 1984. Master distiller at the time and familiar name in bourbon.
Hold on, the cat's sneezing.
Anyway, the master distiller at the time was Elmer T. Lee, a familiar name in bourbon. He actually has a bourbon named after him, which we've never seen. Maybe this year. I'd like to find that one.
It's on our 2021 resolution list, I think.
Yeah, buy a bourbon.
Buy a bourbon.
He was 1 year away from retirement when he created this particular line of whiskey. He based this novel single barrel idea on his experience with former distillery president, Colonel Albert B. Blanton. Now, Colonel Blanton, being a gentleman of Kentucky society, used to entertain some important guests. And when he did that, he would go out to the warehouse and choose honey barrels, with quotation marks there. Did you see that? Honey barrels.
Honey barrels.
And he would have that bourbon bottled one barrel at a time. Elmer named his new bourbon Blanton's Single Barrel in honor of the Colonel. And if you don't already know Colonel Albert B. Blanton's middle name, we are going to tell you.
It's bacon.
It's bacon. How fun
Delicious.
is that? It's great. So there you have it. That's a couple minutes of your life you're not going to get back. One thing we need to discuss before we get to the whiskey is the packaging, because it's pretty interesting stuff. So to start with, it shows up in a box.
You know how I feel about the box situation.
They have to be in a box.
Especially when the bottle looks like this.
Right, yeah, it's fancy enough. But beyond the box, they put it in a nutsack. Look at this.
It's a nice little pouch for your,
For my what?
I don't know.
It's a velvet pouch. We don't need it, Blends. It's unnecessary. Look at this bottle. It's like a little Monty Python holy hand grenade. It's great.
I love it. I really do. I just
It's fun on the shelf. It looks good.
It looks good. It's different.
Very different.
You know how I like just the interesting bottles? It just makes the collections look a little...
Yeah, we shop by bottle shape mostly.
Yeah, highfalutin.
Yeah. Ooh. Beyond the shape of the bottle, the box, the nutsack pouch, and everything else, there's this series of stoppers on top, and that's probably the most unique part of the entire package. Beginning in 1999, a collector's set of 8 different stoppers was released for the Blanton's line. The set features a horse and jockey in different strides and poses resembling the stages of a horse race from beginning to end. Each stopper is marked with a single letter that spells Blanton's when the set has been completed. Doesn't that sound like fun? Collecting stoppers to spell stuff?
It's something to do.
It does give you something to do. So here is the B, shows the gentleman on the horse going to the starting line of the Kentucky Derby, I presume.
Is there one letter that's reportedly hardest to find to finish the set?
I don't know. I have
It's
no
like
idea.
getting Boardwalk on your McDonald's Monopoly game.
The packaging is definitely unique. I think that the box is a little weird. Of course, I guess it's easier to stack and put in cases that way. But the packaging, definitely unique, definitely collectible, definitely interesting. So, okay, Blanton's.
Well, enough about the lovely package. Let's get to the nose.
You said it. One other thing that I want to say as we're starting to get to the nose on this whiskey is that this bottle gets a bit of a bad rap these days, particularly amongst bourbon enthusiasts who have been pursuing bourbon for a long time, especially rare bourbons. The weird thing here is that some people get really upset when they can't get their Blantons these days because it used to be more readily available. I've seen people behave really inappropriately towards store clerks when they weren't able to get their bottle or the specific horsey on top with the letter on it that they wanted. For whatever reason, this bottle brings out bad behavior, and I think because of that, a lot of seasoned bourbon enthusiasts are down on this particular line. It's unfortunate. For a long time, if you asked a seasoned bourbon drinker for a recommendation on a bourbon that they'd never tried before, they would point you toward Blanton's. And that's part of what sort of drove the mystique of this product. People pursue it all over. They pay a premium for it, and when they can't get it, they get upset. And bourbon enthusiasts are frustrated with this line because they can't find it, or they do find it, it's really expensive. People that go into the liquor store all the time, constantly asking, you got any Blantons? You got any Blantons back there? Liquor stores hang up signs that say, no, we don't have any Blantons, stop asking. It's too bad because...
It's too bad, because it's good.
It is good, and quite honestly, it's just the opposite of what we want in the bourbon world. It's just tons of negative energy around a particular whiskey that really did nothing to deserve it. It's too bad. So Blanton's single barrel sells for $60 MSRP. Seems like that price goes up a little bit every year. It certainly did this past year. It is likely aged for 8 years, though it's possibly as young as 6. It's kind of hard to tell online, and it is bottled at 93 proof.
I do feel like we're a little bit lucky because we're in one of those price-controlled states, so
Absolutely.
we get it for MSRP, versus I imagine on secondary this could go for a hefty price tag.
It goes for crazy prices, yeah. And even just on regular store shelves in other parts of the country, when it gets into a liquor store, they will price this thing up or strictly sell it to their favorite customers or whatever it might be. This is hard to find.
Yeah. Are you ready to taste this thing? The nose is quite nice on this, I will say.
Yeah.
It's kind of citrusy.
Vanilla.
It's just really pleasant. Like, it's just, it almost reminds me of like a sunny day. Isn't that so silly? But it just does. Like, it's sunny and bright and citrusy and
It is
light.
citrusy. There's caramel there. There's oak. It is bright. And, and it makes sense to call it a sunny day. It's a sunny day whiskey. I really like that.
Oh,
that's probably
good.
a tasting note you're not going to get elsewhere. And if it is,
We're good for that.
you know, we're good for that. We're great for that.
Yeah, and at 93 proof, you can get a little hint that there's going to be just a slight heat underneath.
There's a bit of heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be a little spicy. I just splashed it right in my face.
We'll see how hot it is in the eye.
So in the eye, should I give you a review of what this tastes like when it gets into your
I
eye?
am now blind.
Yeah. I think we should get to the tasting notes because the only other thing that I get on the nose here that I've said before is a little bit of apple juice, not actual fruit apple, but like super sweet store-bought apple juice. I'm getting some of that right now, not as much as I usually get, probably because we're so far down in this bottle, but that's the only thing that I get on the nose that we haven't mentioned yet. So, what are you up to there, Kat?
God, all my hair is everywhere.
There's so there's a nice hint of cat hair in this too. I don't know if you're getting that. Cheers. Let's get into the palate.
Cheers. It's very smooth.
Very. Citrus hangs around. It's floral, which is weird. I don't usually get floral on any whiskey, but I get it on this one. Caramel shows up. The vanilla, I think, is my favorite note on this one. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that second sip, a lot of caramel came through on that.
You're on your second sip already?
Oh, yeah.
No wonder you out-sip me every time.
I know, I can't help it. Like, I feel like I should get something right away, like I should know what I'm tasting, and so then I rush it, and, and then that's where I end up with empty glasses and you're half full.
There's not a ton of spice here. There's a little cinnamon, and that seems to build with more sips. Did you even give a tasting note? You were going to give a tasting note a minute ago, and then I distracted you. Now the
cat, all he wants is snuggles.
Man,
it's a weird day. He wants to be involved with the Blantons.
Everybody does.
I don't know if I want to say an apple pie, but like you get a little bit of apple. I mean, we did always say a little bit of apple cider, but I can taste like a little bit of the cinnamon, or I don't know if it's like a nutmeg or just a little bit of spice underneath.
There is, yeah. I actually think that there's a little bit of a baked apple here, like that cinnamon spiced apple that you core the apple and then you put like that mixture of sugar, brown sugar, cinnamon, and raisins in there, and then you bake it. That's kind of what we've got here. It's gentler than that. It's not overly strong flavor-wise, and the heat does build on the back. The cinnamon sort of hangs around more than anything else, but that's what I get from this one. It's sort of that baked apple as a recipe sort of thing.
Yeah, and I'm getting just a little, like a baby hint of oak there.
Sure. Yeah, very small, but it's there.
Yeah.
It's definitely there. So this is one of those whiskeys where the finish doesn't necessarily build as cinnamon. It doesn't necessarily build as heat. And I think that's one of the reasons that it's so wildly popular and that it's gained in popularity, especially among people who regularly drink this. For $60, There are people who try to make this their daily drinker because they like it so much.
Yeah.
And I think the reason for that is that as that finish sits and builds and lingers, vanilla, caramel, some oak, there is spice, but dark brown sugar shows up. And it sort of hangs around. That intense dark brown sugar is the prevailing flavor for me on the finish of this glass. I can understand why people sort of obsess over it.
Yeah, it's very pleasant and very easy to sip.
Completely.
So I understand that.
Yeah, you can see how somebody would get obsessed with this whiskey.
Yeah.
So I think that takes us to value and comparable bottles. You know, the price on this goes up every year. Now we're sitting at $60 MSRP here in Oregon. That's no joke for really any bourbon. It has to be really good to perform at that price point.
Yeah, you're almost getting into that mid to high level bourbon purchase.
You're in that area where the comparable bottles, there may not be a ton of them at 93 proof, but there are some great bottles at that price point. Sure, this is unique. It's flavorful, it's pleasant, it's easy to sip. You can see why people really like it, but at $60, oof, it's a little much. It's one that you want to keep it on the shelf, and we bought a lot of these in our travels when we got them well below that $60 price point. That's why we have these bottles. We don't really pursue this one, and it's hard to recommend pursuing it, and that's easy for us to say because we have a couple. We don't drink it all that much. Now, over the last year, we've turned down several opportunities to buy this bottle, and it seems like an indication that we're seeing it more and more. Hopefully that's the case for everybody out there. I'm sure it's not the case everywhere. Potentially, with those expansions that Buffalo Trace has been doing the last few years, perhaps we're going to see more of this on the shelves. It won't be such a tricky bottle to find, and maybe the rest of their stuff won't either. Yeah. Fingers crossed, and that's hopefully a big maybe. Who knows?
And if you can get your hands on one, I will say that we don't drink it very often.
True.
But there are occasions where I'm trying to figure out what I want to drink on a Friday or a Saturday or whatever, and just nothing sounds good, but that does, and it's never disappointed.
We finished Christmas night with a glass of this.
Oh, we did.
It's just that occasional, I want something really pleasant to sip before bed or something like that. It's a good bottle for that.
Yeah.
And it's a nice bottle to share with folks who've never tried it before, because it's a nice way to show people that you
feel like
them.
you're drinking something a little special. So if you ever come over and we don't give you Blantons,
don't come over again. Yeah, in my mind, this isn't a bottle that should be revered or overly celebrated. If you can find one at MSRP or a little over and you've never had it, or you just like to have one on the shelf if you're a collector, there's nothing at all wrong with that. Pursuing this one like crazy and letting it stress you out, I don't really recommend that. There's too many great bottles out there.
Yeah.
This one also has plenty of competition, and thinking from a single barrel standpoint, 1792's single barrel product, we happen to really like that. It's a couple proof points higher, but it sells for $40. It's a lot more readily available. I know some of you in the Midwest, you're having trouble finding that bottle. There's some places around where the 1792 small batch is the only one you can find, but that single barrel product is one of our favorite bottles that we tried last year. It's really impressive stuff for $40.
I was gonna say $20 less. I mean, kind of hard to pass up.
Yeah, exactly. And it is a Sazerac product, so it's under that same giant umbrella. It's not exactly Buffalo Trace, but some of those flavor notes, to the sort of bright flavors that you get from it. And it's also aged for 8 years, you know that, so I think that makes this a direct competitor with this bottle. That's a solid bottle.
Do you think Four Roses single barrel would compare to this?
I think it does. I think that the Four Roses at 100 proof is, it's proofed a little higher, but at the same time it sells, again, in the neighborhood of $40. 100 proof, $40. Four Roses sometimes can be a little spicy, but it does have complex flavors at that price point. It's a suitable, comparable bottle. Yeah, the flavors are very, very different, but it does have true bourbon flavor, and it's good. It's good whiskey for $40.
Yeah, you said that spicy, and I immediately went from how smooth this is to how a little jarring the first couple sips of that Four Roses can be.
Yeah.
Even though it's delicious.
If you're specifically looking for single barrel products that will be easier to drink, the 1792 is probably your leading competitor right here. Wild Turkey Russell Reserve single barrel, that sells at that $60 price point. It is higher proof, over 100 proof. It's a great value. It's much more readily available. Generally, you get a little more cinnamon, spice on some Wild Turkey stuff, but the availability has to come into play when you want to compare things. And that being a single barrel that sells near the same price point and is readily available and is higher proof, in my mind, that's just a great value.
And then you're not leaving the store empty-handed.
Yeah. Again, that's a very different whiskey, just like the Four Roses was. But in terms of single barrels, the Russell's Reserve, the Four Roses, 1792, much more readily available and all, in my opinion, better values. It really is hard to make a recommendation based on flavor. Single barrels vary in flavor from barrel to barrel, and this is certainly unique whiskey. It is unusual. In my opinion, it's a good bottle to keep on the shelf to enjoy from time to time, like you said, maybe special occasion, great bottle to share. But if you're looking for bang for your buck, I would say look elsewhere.
This kind of goes back to what I said about the Stag Junior, where if it was more readily available, I mean, it's a higher price point than you would want for a daily drinker, but it is very smooth.
Yeah.
If you wanted something a little higher quality to drink every day, but at that availability level, it's just a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about this in terms of our personal preference, what we would do to get this bottle, which when we see it, we get it if it's an appropriate price. We can't tell you what to do, and we don't want to give anybody grief that's pursuing this bottle because it's a solid whiskey. We have no complaints with it. It's not offensive in any way. This is that, again, that higher level Buffalo Trace, solid whiskey. It's a crowd pleaser. They're all crowd pleasers for the most part. So in my opinion, this is a quality product. I enjoy it very much, just like I enjoy pretty much the entire Buffalo Trace line. $60 MSRP is what I'll pay for it. I don't pay more than that for it. Personal opinion. I've had it before. I've got it on the shelf. It's easy for me to say that, but at $60, that's enough for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So there you have it. What do you think of Blanton's? What do you think of the Stoppers? Do you want to tell us about your nutsack? Go ahead in the comments. This has been a really fun month, this month of March 2021, talking about Buffalo Trace products, the blind tastings, the live stream. We have seen our channel go over 1,000 subscribers, which is awesome. Thank you all so much for that. And there's not much left to say. Tell us what your favorite moment was of the Buffalo Trace month. Tell us about your Blanton's experiences. Tell us anything you want. Why not? We're here. We're here to listen.
Yeah.
As always, like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on Instagram at the Bourbon Van. And from wherever we are,
To wherever you are.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's sugary sweet.
I like it.